What's up, everybody? This is Miroku with Outer Rim Gaming. I am one half of the group. Of course, Bradley. He's done a few videos and done some of our reveals for the Fantasy Flight games, Star Wars Unlimited. Right now, we are in the midst of spoiler season again for Set 4. Jump to Lightspeed. I'm actually looking forward to this. I'm enjoying all the new pilots and some of the new mechanics that's coming with it. But what I want to do right now is to go back and kind of look at the previous sets and their leaders. I kind of want to do my own breakdown as to where I feel their power levels are and even the possibility of them gaining some strength in the next set. Which I do have a few of those. In fact, I have 3 that I'm going to talk about and look at. And I'm also going to give you a little bit of a definition as to what I think, each tier means in reality. S tier are the ones that have a super high win rate and high top 8 percentage compared to the rest of the field. Those are what I call meta defining. There's a little bit more than what I expected to be on that list, but I feel like it is very acceptable and reasonable for them to be there. A tier are kind of your top contenders, good win percentages. Some of them may just have abysmal win rates against the actual S tier decks, but they are also ones putting up numbers and still very viable for the format as a whole. B tier is to me, is more of your fun to play. Some wins could challenge some of the top tier decks, but they're going to struggle a little bit more than what your A tier will. C tier is kind of one of those ones where, I don't really see the point of playing some of these. Don't expect too much. They're probably a meme deck or a deck of flavor, like a theme, kind of like Mandalorians or Wookiees, stuff like that. And then D tier is just the absolute abysmal bottom of the barrel decks that I would never consider playing, at least at this time. So, the first one I'm going to put on, and I'm going to start at D tier and go up. These leaders absolutely, I feel like, are unplayable in their current form. And the first one, and the one that I feel is the absolute worst, is Hunter. I don't know where the testing went for Fantasy Flight Gaming when it came to Hunter. The fact that he is part of the Bad Batch, in fact, the leader of the Bad Batch, and is supposed to be kind of like this pinnacle leader. I don't know what to say. It's absolutely unplayable. I have not found a single person who has made this leader work. Even some of the most diehard Bad Batch fans, Clone Wars fan, it's just I've never seen anyone make it work. The next one is, again, I feel very unplayable, and that is Nala Se. Don't get me wrong, I was really big and hyped up on her, and I can admit where I'm wrong, but I was so hyped and excited to be able to play all these clones and have the control package of Villainous Blue, and when I attempted, it was absolutely awful. I could be just a bad player. That happens, but I really enjoy deck building and making cards that are useless or bad seem actually good. And this isn't it. I couldn't do anything with this. Another one is Chewbacca. Now, I remember this one kind of surprising everybody in the first week with I believe it was the tournament in Poland, where they had um, anywhere from like 90 to like 120, if I remember it correctly, But we were surprised because Chewbacca actually made a top 8. And everyone was, kind of questioning, is this guy actually decent? Can we actually build around him? And this was in set 1. Um, and then from then on, I don't and can't recall any other Chewbaccas. I could be wrong. If anyone else has like a link or anything else that can show where Chewbacca did better than what I'm giving him credit for, that's great. If not, I mean, it happens. We're not always going to have S's. Um, the next one is Newt Gunray. When the Clone Wars kind of was spoiled and everything, I was expecting a huge focus on some of the leaders for the Separatists to be really, really good and kind of be like the main focus of set 3. Um, I don't expect every leader to be an A tier. I don't expect every leader to be an S tier. However, when you have pinnacle characters from this franchise being entered into the game, there's certain ones that you kind of expected to be decent. Newt Gunray, I kind of expected him to be more middle of the pack because I expected the good leaders to be, Asajj Ventress, Dooku, Grievous. And honestly, I expected Wat Tambor because in the show, Wat Tambor was much more of a threat than Newt Gunray ever was. So, all in all, Newt Gunray, a little disappointed, but not exactly out of the realm of my expectations. The next one is Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon, I don't know exactly why it didn't work, or really, I don't understand what the concept of him was. Because he seems to be wanting to go lower units, like cheaper units, quicker. While when you have a green villain, they normally pair up with like blue or something else to grind your opponent out of the game. So I just don't feel like Moff Gideon kind of fit into that plan. And I'll actually bump Chewbacca up because I do think Chewbacca's better than Moff Gideon. And I'll move these as I come to them. Next one is Grievous. Honestly, another dual deck leader. I expected a lot better of him, and I'll be honest with you. Except for the set 1 leaders, most of the dual deck leaders have been pretty terrible. Yeah, it's just been really disappointing on those. At least since set 1. Finn, that to me, that's another one that's absolutely terrible. Yeah, it's just an awful, awful leader. I haven't seen anyone else do much with him. I know the garbage rollers, whenever they were first spoiling and testing new cards on screen, I kind of was convinced a little bit with Finn. I mean, I don't know which one was running it, but they were doing a Finn green, and he was actually doing really, really well. And then once the set was released, it was not great. And I'm not a big fan of destroying upgrades for an experience token. Or no, not an experience token. That's Rose. A shield token. I feel like Luke just does that a whole lot better than Finn does. If I'm wanting to give my heroic units a shield token. This next one, some people may argue because he has actually made a top 8 in this set, and that's Cassian Andor. I get the concept and I understand what he's meant to do. I don't think he does it very well, and I just think there is a lot better red leaders, red heroic, than what he offers. But some people may really enjoy him, and if the guy that made top 8 with him plans on going to any of these new events where the top 64 players, whoever has the leader that makes it the highest or gets the best record, gets a showcase. Maybe that's what he's after. I wish him the best of luck because I couldn't play Cassian personally. Next one is Jin Urso. There's been a few people that I've saw win a showdown, and there's a few people that made top 8 at showdowns during set 1, but overall has not made a huge impression with her. And I honestly think her ability is just weak. Lowering a single unit's attack power just feels bad. It really, really does. And it doesn't affect the board as much as someone would want. The next one and the last one in the D tier is one that I actually want to talk about, and that is Hera. Much like Nala say, it just doesn't seem to fit well in the meta. It doesn't do much. But the reason why I'm kind of pulling her out and waiting to the last and even putting her up closer to the top of the D tier is because, we had the new Sabine come out. It's not a great card. I'm not a big fan of it. But I feel like it can be useful. But the next set, we are adding pilots into the deck. You have Phantom 2 coming out. You have the white ship that gives buffs and bonuses for all the different colors that are on the field when played. I feel like that is going to make a huge difference because it is a 3-drop. And there's also the new Hera pilot, which looks absolutely amazing for the low cost. Restore, good pilot stats. Seems to be on par with stuff like Paige Tico and Cassian Andor, which both of those are also really amazing pilots for the blue for Vigilance. And I think if you can build a deck with the Spectres as a good focus, but add in enough other things to help support it, I think you could potentially have a B or C tier deck, and it just depends on how much more support they're going to pull in from this set. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, Hera's gonna flip and turn around and be the next S tier champion by any means, or leader. But I think that it's possible that with the things coming in, she may get a lot better. And with that, that is my current D tier. Now the next group is C tier, and I'll be honest with you, there's some in here that I kind of argue with myself about whether or not they are actually C tier to D tier. And some of y'all could probably see why. First and foremost, Jabba the Hutt. I was really excited about Jabba. I was kind of along the hype with the whole, Jabba's Rancor, Wild Rancor, pulling in the Drayden Voss, all that kind of stuff. I tried different versions. None of it worked. None of it seemed good. And ultimately, as we can see in the meta, he's just non-existent. I mean, I do see a few people still trying to put him together and everything else, and I will honestly put him on the like lowest of C tier, almost arguably into D tier. Um, with that in mind, the next one that I really argued with was Lando. I do see it better than Jabba, and I've seen the red version that is actually really, really fast and actually pretty decent. I'm surprised no one has surprised the meta and made a top 8 with him. I personally don't like him. I'm not a big fan of him, but I have seen people do some crazy stuff with him, which is impressive. It really is. Um, but if it wasn't for the fact that I've saw a few people do really well with him, I would honestly put him in D tier. Another one, which is definitely you know a tribal deck, as you can put it, is Bo-Katan. She's another one that I put together in set 2 and tested with Bradley against his Gar Saxon. Spoiler alert if you guys never watched it, Gar Saxon actually ended up winning 2-1. First game I got it, and the last two I got blown out. It was a fun deck, super cool, super enjoyable, but ultimately I don't feel like the Mandalorians have enough support to go a full tribal deck, or at least they're not powerful enough to compete. And I feel like Fantasy Flight kind of took a caution to that because they didn't want a whole thing like Magic has had in the past, where it's one faction just absolutely obliterating the field. So you're either playing it or you're playing one specific deck that can beat it. So I can respect that since this is a new game. You don't want to alienate your player base that quickly, or potentially push people away from your game. This next one is one that I also considered D tier. The only reason I have him in C tier is because he actually won a PQ. That is Gar Saxon. I mean, not Gar Saxon, Pre Vizsla. Sorry, we're not at Gar Saxon yet. Pre Vizsla. I don't understand how someone could win with him. I've looked at him. I've never tried to play with him, but just reading his leader ability and what he does, it just seems bad. And I don't know if it's just the fact that each turn you get to draw 2 cards, or instead of just the one like normal decks or normal games are. But his abilities just seem so weak, and just definitely not my favorite deck by any means. Uh, just not fun, or at least to me. Some of you guys may be like, "Hey, try this deck out." Be more than happy to test anything you guys throw at me. But right now, I could not see how anyone can play Pre-Vizsla. The next deck is a deck that I actually played in set 2 and had a lot of fun with, is Hondo. When Bradley and I did our assessments, we kind of rated Hondo pretty low because we just didn't see the support for a smuggle-centric leader. He was actually a pretty decent green villainy vigilance deck with lone pikes and the collecting star hoppers. I mean, it was actually a really good deck. I had a lot of fun with it. Was it a S tier deck? Absolutely not. But it was really fun to play. And honestly, you had Hondo actually top 8 twice so far. So I think it's arguably an okay deck. I mean, you could probably topple some locals, maybe even a showdown. PQ sectors, World Championship, maybe not. Probably not. But it's going to be a fun deck. You're going to have a good time. Your opponent may not, but it's all good. The next one is another one that I'm going to put kind of middle of this is Grand Inquisitor. He had a lot of synergy in set 1 with your grit units like the Scout Bike Pursuer and Baze Malbus. And of course, you got your 5th and brother and 7th sister. And it was pretty fun. It was not competitive. I don't recall any big info on him doing well in store showdowns or anything like that. And he has a pretty cool ability. I wished it worked. And I know Veldshot did a video where you could pretty much do a one turn kill with him using keep fighting and clan challengers and something else. But you could pretty much do like 30 damage on one turn. It was pretty insane. But Veldshot's a very good player. So I can see why something like that would work for him. I don't know how well it'd work for anyone else. But if you want to, give it a shot. Go look up Veldshot and go find the video. And you can see how it works and kind of watch him play and learn if that's what you're into. Next one is IG88. That's another one that has top 8'd in a PQ, which is honestly pretty surprising because he's not the greatest leader, and I would consider him in previous like kind of D tier. But there's been a lot of people that's attempted, and it's definitely not my style of deck. But other people seem to enjoy it, and it works for them. Next one is Thrawn. Thrawn has had little success since set 1. He is super fun, super annoying, and really easy to get on people's nerves with the constant checking the top of the decks and manipulating the game. And it's definitely something you want to play if you are playing a control route. But ultimately, I just don't feel like he was successful in being able to do what he's wanting to do. Chirrut is also on this list. Chirrut, I would consider, in set 1, I considered him like an A tier leader. He was topping pretty well in the showdowns and was doing really good in tournaments. And he was actually a really good alternative if you didn't want to play Luke in set 1. The thing that really hurt him was the fact that Rey was released as well as Han 2. Both of those kind of took the shell of Chirrut and just improved on it. And then come set 3, you now have Anakin, who has taken over that shell and is doing, even better. So I think it's hard to just put him up there very high anymore because you just had better leaders released. I mean, it is what it is. And I think that's going to happen to a lot of some of our favorite leaders. And some of y'all may hang on and just keep pushing on with the same leader you have. More power to you. If that's what you enjoy playing, I encourage anyone to play what they want to play. Next one, kind of the same thing with Leia. Leia was the only one that kind of challenged Sabine on the aggro ability in set 1. I mean, if you were playing the Rebel aggro deck, you were either Leia or Sabine. Obviously, Sabine has completely outpaced Leia, and 99% of the Leias are now just sitting in the corner. And I don't think there's going to be any improvements for this leader uh, before rotation. There may be some help for her in the internal formats or the eternal format that's going to be coming. I don't know if there's going to be any additional ones. There probably will at some point. But as of right now, I don't think you're going to be playing Leia anymore. Next one is Padme. Padme, I would have set in D tier. However, there's been a new deck that's been floating around called Flood the Senate that it looks a lot of fun. It kind of just goes crazy with card advantage and does exactly what it says by flooding. It looks really fun. It's not really my type of deck, but if anyone else has tested it or wants to make comments about it or discuss it some more, or even play test it with me, that'd be great too. But it seems like Padme has set up a little bit of a niche for right now, but I don't expect her to remain in C tier. I don't expect her to take on any PQs, and will probably fall back down to the D tier. And the more and more I think of it, I'm going to drop Jabba down to D tier. I don't even think it's good enough to stay in C. Next one is Maul. Maul has actually won a PQ this set, and he was doing some decent numbers early on, and honestly, I'm surprised he's not better. Because I mean, who doesn't want a ambush unit coming in? Unfortunately, we don't have anything like that on the heroic side, which is mostly what I play. Because I would really enjoy that, and unless you count Finnick. But, you know, I do like Maul. Too bad it didn't work out for him. But he did win a PQ, so I will give him that, and hopefully we may see some more creative decks coming out, especially with the new expansion. Speaking of Finnick, Finnick has topped several times, has not taken down anything. So as I was saying, Finnick Shen has done decently, a little bit better than what I expected. She has top 3'd, or she's made top 8 3 different times this set. Has not won yet, but, you know, if you are trying to build a deck to where you can ambush units in, yeah, I think she would be a good one to build around. I've never tested her, but, you know, I'm glad other people are. The next one that's C tier, some people may laugh at, and I would actually put her up here around there, is Dr. Afra. So when Bradley and I did our assessments of leaders, Dr. Afra was one of the ones that we put in D tier. Just like we put Hondo there. And I think those were the two from set 2 that we kind of messed up on. Not a whole lot, but Dr. Afra actually had a really hilarious control deck get released with blue. And they used the Bounty Hunter group card that lets you get an event out of your graveyard to your hand. And then with Bazine Nettle and Restocks. And there's one other card that lets you do kind of the same thing. Plus her ability when she flips, you're able to recur a lot of your Vigilances, Super Laser Blast, all that kind of stuff, and it makes it a super hard control deck. And it was absolutely hilarious. and I even played it for a little bit, and it was super fun. And then I had to take it apart because my wife literally said she would never play Star Wars with me again if I kept playing it. So it went bye bye. I love my wife dearly, but she absolutely hated that deck. Um, I had fun, was not for her. So I had to retire it. Next one is Ahsoka Tano. That's another one I'm putting up a little bit higher on the C tier. Um, I've built a few decks with her, both yellow and green. Uh, both worked out okay. I like the green version better. And, unfortunately, as a dual deck, the leaders have just been not there. They have not been great since set one. I'm hoping the new Boba and Han will be a little bit better, or hopefully Fantasy Flight will take a look at it and try to give them a little bit of a better stat line and abilities going forward. Because I feel like if your dual decks are supposed to be like the image of these sets, I mean, you don't have to make them all S tier, but at least make them playable. And speaking of playable, here is another one that I'm gonna actually put up a little bit higher, and that is the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, I mean, I guess as it sits, Mando would probably sit around here. But with the new set coming out where pilots are upgrades, I absolutely believe Mando is going to either go up to a middle of the pack B tier or a low A tier. And I've built some decks with him, and they have worked out really well. Um, and I really think you need to watch out for this leader and Hera. And there's one other one that I'm going to look at and explain to watch their power levels. I really do think Hera and Mando are getting enough support that they're going to be really good next set. Maybe not Hera entirely, but definitely Mando will be a lot better. Um, and I saved him for last on this list because I wanted to talk about how much better I think he's going to be come this next set. I'm going to also go ahead and get rid of Boba. We know that he is not an S tier, but with his current suspension, he has a lower win rate than Hunter right now. Well, maybe not. They may have the same, but either way. That is it for the C tier. There's a little bit more here than D tier, and that's because we have some of the leaders here that I think they're better, and I think they fit my definition of being a meme deck or flavor deck as well, compared to just being outright terrible in D tier. Next one is B tier. And like I said, these are ones that I consider fun to play. Could win against some challenging decks. Will struggle against some of the tier decks, definitely. But I think they can have potential, and they may do well later on in the sets. But that's just it. First one I'm going to pull out is Dooku. Dooku, being the face of the Separatist, should have been so much better. I feel like they did Dooku kind of wrong with this set, but overall I think he has potential, especially if there's any sets before next March that has more Separatist abilities or tags that could potentially help him push him in. But as he currently stands, there hasn't been any tops. There hasn't been any wins. I know some of you guys may be wondering why I've put him up here for the B tier, and it's just because the games that I've seen him play, he seems to be just right there at the cusp of doing good. And now that I think about it, I mean, I guess I will drop him down to a C tier because yeah, I guess he would fit more of a themed deck. But I think he definitely has the potential to be a low B. The next one is Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan has not won any PQs. He has made top 8 twice. And he, honestly, I've liked Obi-Wan. He's not my first choice for heroic leader or heroic vigilance leader that I would go to. Um, if I really wanted to play this, I would probably go to something like Yoda, Rey, Anakin, Luke. Um, with that being said, I would say that the next one would be Wat Tambor, and I would actually put him below um, Obi. He's only top 8'd once, but there is an iteration of him with yellow that is really really good. Um, uh, I've only seen it played a couple times, and the times that I watched it, it did well. I mean, it really did, and it beat some of the decks that I wouldn't expect it to. Like somehow it was able to outgrind out a Anakin deck. I don't know if the Anakin player was just having bad draws or what was happening, but he actually shut out the Anakin. The next two are ones that I'm actually disappointed in. Um, they are definitely on the cusp of being really great, and I'll get to both of those in just a second. Um, they're just on the cusp of being hyper aggro. I mean, they are hyper aggro, but they're on the cusp of just being able to, you know, really get those numbers that they need. Um, neither of the next two have won a PQ yet, but Asajj Ventress and Kylo Ren are very close to being the same thing. They have a little bit different tactics, but they are both hyper aggressive, faster than Sabine. The only problem is they have what I call the glass cannon. They can put out great damage, great numbers, but if there is absolutely any interruptions, or if there's any bad card draws, or just too much stuff left to chance, they collapse. And for that reason, I put them at a B tier. They do seem very fun to play. As a matter of fact, in set 2, I made a Kylo Ren reanimation deck using Palpatine's Return with Maul and Vader, using the discard ability with Migs Mayfield and Kylo Ren and Force Throws, and it worked out really well. It was super fun to play. Bradley is the one that actually originally came up with the idea. I went further with it, and it was really great. The next one I'm going to pull up is Tarkin. Tarkin actually has won a PQ, and it was actually Tarkin Blue that won the PQ. I know everyone was pretty hyped up on the Triple Dark Raid of set 3 with Tarkin, using things like the Lurkin TIE Phantom and some of the bigger units. And it was pretty good. I mean, of course, once it hit a few weeks in, I think one of the PQs before we saw a huge drop in Tarkins, I think his win rate was down like a 36%. and then after that he just kind of petered off. Um, with that being said, I do think Tarkin's a really fun deck, but I think everyone knows that there is definitely a space deck that took over the meta when it came to being more space than ground units, and we'll get to him later. Next one is Luke, and I'll actually put him at a low B. There's still a few of these decks floating around, not nearly as much as there was in the first two sets, but I do still think the power level is there. Unfortunately, like I said before, I do believe stuff like Rey, Yoda, Anakin has probably pushed Luke out and down to lower than an A. With that said, I really hope that he gets a little bit more support, and it's a potential with the pilots and everything else that's coming to Vigilance and Command. Next is Mace Windu. Mace Windu has won one PQ and has made a top 8 and 5 of them. I think he's pretty good. He's definitely a control deck, I would feel. Kind of matches a little bit of what you want to do with Luke, kind of. But when it comes to comparing him against like Anakin and Rey, I really think that he just gets outclassed, especially with Yoda. When I looked at set 3, I kind of put him, personally, I put him at like a B tier. And I think it still fits right now. Next one will be Chancellor Palpatine. He is definitely a low B. I would almost put him as a C because he is very much like a themed style deck. He hasn't won any PQs or anything like that. In fact, yeah, I think I will drop him down to a C because he hasn't put up the numbers enough for me to say, oh, absolutely, he deserves it. And I think there's not enough consistency on his flips, or there's not enough people that know how to consistently flip him. And a lot of it comes down to chance as well. With that, I am going to go with Vader. Vader has made a top 4, or a top 8 and 4 PQs. Like I said earlier, the dual deck leaders have been terrible since set 1, or since after set 1. But Vader and Luke were, very strong leaders in set 1, even a little bit in set 2. And then you have a few floating around now in set 3. I never built a deck with Vader, but I know that he seemed like a lot of fun, seemed pretty good and pretty resilient. I know personally that he was the absolute worst matchup I had when I played Luke while on the blue control deck. It was one of the only. It was the only draw I ended up taking, which for Fantasy Flight, a draw is still a loss while in a tournament. With that being said, I'm also going to put Rex in B. And I know he hasn't made any wins in PQs, he hasn't made any top 8s, there's not too many people playing him, but this has been the main deck that I have played since the release of set 3. I haven't done as well with him as I did with Luke and Han 2. But he is absolutely a great leader. Um, some people will argue, and I'm biased on this one. This is a hill I'll die on. I think he's an absolute great leader, and I absolutely love playing him. He is one of the most fun decks that I've played. Um, I'm getting down to the last three of the B tier leaders. Um, let's see here. Where is Boba? Um, let's put him around here. Boba 2, the Damio, has not had as much success as the original Boba, but he is still a fun deck. He's made a top 8 in 3 tournaments. And I just think with his ability and all the keywords that's constantly floating around on all these different units, he's just going to remain kind of at the tier that he's at and just collect better and better tools as the sets get closer to next March. Um, I don't think he'll ever reach like a high A or an S tier. I think he may stay at B tier or remain or go up to a low A. But I really do think he's a good leader. Thork has made a deck to where he played Cunning, Damio, and it worked pretty well. Um, I've seen a few people make a aggressor Damio and then also the Vigilance Damio, which I have played, and it was a lot of fun. Next one is Han 2. He's had the same stats as Damio, and I'm actually really sad about this because Han 2 was like the main deck I played in set 2. When we did his assessment or the tier list back then, I actually had him in S tier because of his ability just being so good at the time. But just like the other people that some of the leaders have been hit with, his numbers dropped drastically as Rey has kind of solidified herself as I almost want to say like a better version of him because he plays so many low cost units or low powered units that Rey benefits them a little bit better and doesn't damage them. She kind of does the opposite. And then, of course, you had your red and command versions of the decks that they played. And I honestly just think Rey ended up becoming a better leader because of the units that came along. And then, of course, Rey and Han 2 has kind of taken a little bit of a downward track because of the Anakin. Anakin absolutely is just a great leader overall. And the last one that I want to talk about is Gar Saxon. I actually will put him above Mace. He has won 1 PQ and has topped 8'd 5 of them. So he has the same stats as Mace. However, Cunning Gar is going to be really, really great. The new set that's coming out is bringing in a whole lot of things that's absolutely going to make Gar Saxon a monster to fight. The reason why I said Krennic is because the unit Krennic is going to be one of the things that absolutely benefit him. He is actually the third leader that I put aside to say that this guy is probably going to end up going into A tier, if not looking at S tier, with all of the tools that he is being handed this set. Keep an eye out for him. If you are into showcases, the 3 that I mentioned, which did Mando get a showcase. I don't collect showcases. If I ever pull them, I actually sell them. So I don't know if if the Mando got a showcase card. He may have. Um, okay, he did. That's awesome. So as I was saying, I would definitely encourage anyone that is after showcases to either get the Gar Saxon, the Hera, or the Mandalorian before it becomes really expensive. I really, really would. Um, that's just my advice because I think all three of those may see a uptick in play, especially if we do not get a new Hera leader. I think there's two or three leaders left to spoil, and if Hera is not one of them, I absolutely believe in what I've said about Hera getting more play. With that being said, that is the last of my B tiers. And now we're going to go into the actual kind of the bread and butter of what I wanted to do with this. Um, so the weakest one I would say for A tier is Yoda. Yoda has not won any. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Yoda has won 2 PQs and has made top 8 in 7 of them. So he's done fairly well. I don't know who played it this past weekend, but the Command Yoda looked really impressive, and I applaud you for beating out the Boss Blue. That was a great game to watch. So congratulations to that player. I believe it was in the Twin Cities, and I think Late Night Gaming is the one that covered it. If you haven't watched it, please go look at it or give them a subscribe because even though there was a snowstorm going on and the quality was not the best, they were still doing their best to provide content for everybody. So good job on that. With that being said, the next one, surprisingly, is Eden Versio. Eden has won 3 PQs and has topped in 11 of them. Since set 1, she has been arguably the best vigilance control leader here. She has had a long-standing rivalry with Krennic. I believe in set 1 she held the edge, but now I think there's 2 other leaders that is absolutely pushing her out from being able to say that she is the go-to vigilance villain leader. And the reason why is the glaring weakness of being a 4/4. Yes, she comes in shielded. Yes, she heals your base. But, when a simple takedown can obliterate you or any saboteur that has just enough to punch through your shield to kill you, I don't think is the greatest leader. I really don't. The next one is, of course, the rival of Eden, who has done really well themselves for set 3. And that is Director Krennic. Each friendly damage unit gets a +1. The only reason why I'm not super big onto this is the front and backside aren't any different, and his deploy is okay. It's a 5. And I think the other thing that annoys me the most is just how low of a stat line he has. Me personally, if I'm going if I'm going blue villain, I would go Kira. I really, really would. And that's because, I think Kira is one of the best leaders for blue villainy. And I know I was talking about Krennic, and the only thing he does is restore 2. But he does 2 damage. I really think that's a weak stat line, but his ability isn't too bad. But with that, I would say Kira is our next one. Has won 3 PQs, has made top 8 in 32. 32 out of, how many have we had this split? 109. We've had 109, and there's been 32 Kira decks to make top 8, which is phenomenal. Maybe not as much as some of the others, but still really great. With that being said, I'm actually getting a little ahead of myself. I meant to bring up Rey. Rey has been a great leader since set 2. For a while, she was kind of a rival to Han Solo, and when I did her tier list, I actually put her, I believe, as an A tier. I think she was one of the few that I put A tier, and I really do think she's a great leader. Some people may not be a giant fan of the character herself, but as a leader, she's really good. She's won 1 PQ and has made top 8 and there's been 16 top 8s with her. So a little bit higher than Eden, but Eden does have 3 wins, so I am putting her above. Just like she has higher top 8s than Krennic, but Krennic, I will actually correct that. Krennic has only had 1 win and made top 8 11 times. So I will actually swap that. I know I've changed these, but I really do think Krennic was probably a little bit better than Eden. So hard to justify that. But I'm going to go right back to Kira. Kira, I think, is my go-to if I'm playing blue villainy and I'm not doing the whole boss deck. Kira is the one I'm playing. I even playtested her in one of our videos. I actually ended up losing to one of the other decks we ended up doing for the channel, which was Smuggle Han Solo. I ended up losing, I believe, 2-1. But it was a super fun deck. I think my biggest glaring mistake on that one was I didn't put Vigilance in a double blue deck. My bad. I make bad choices. The last 2 for this would be Palpatine. Palpatine has been a very great set 1 leader, and he's kind of like the pinnacle point of what I mean by if you're going to have somebody be the face of a faction or one of the main characters of that faction, you should make them good. Palpatine has done well in several different varieties: command, cunning, vigilance. I don't know of any aggression, but I know of at least those 3 styles he's made great numbers with. I think the one that he's done the best with has been cunning, at least since this set. I know set 1 and into set 2 it was blue. But overall, a good leader. The last one for this, and then we'll get to the S tiers, is Anakin Skywalker. Just like Palpatine, Anakin has won 4 PQs. Anakin has made top 8 with 39 decks, which is over Palpatine's 37. And This is the leader that has essentially replaced Chirrut and Han 2 and is kind of threatening Rey. They have a little bit of a different playstyle, but overall, Anakin feels the closest one to my set one Luke deck that I played, and it has been really fun. If I'm going to a competitive event instead of just a casual one, instead of bringing Rex or Ahsoka, I've actually been bringing Anakin, and I really do think he's a great leader. I don't know how set three is going to um, affect him, or if it will really change much at all. But overall, I believe he is probably the best leader that came out of set three. Well, I'll take that back. He was the best leader that came out of set three until Boba got banned. After Boba got banned, two other leaders from set three kind of opened up the doors and, you know, came into the meta. But with my initial impression, I honestly put Anakin and Yoda for set three as the two best leaders. I believe everyone can agree with me that they missed the other two that we're going to talk about shortly. But with that, that is all the set, or that is all the A tier leaders that I have. The next one we're going to go into is Cad Bane as being the lowest S tier leader. Cad Bane has won 5 PQs and had top 8 with 51 decks. As you can tell, with the higher the tier we're going, the more numbers are booming and blowing up. I mean, with there being 109 PQs, you have a potential of nearly 800 decks. Or, well, you would have the potential of probably about 850 decks roughly making top 8s. So, larger number, more percentages, you know. But Cad Bane has won 5, made top 8 in 51 of them. And almost all of them have been the Tarkin Town version. I believe there's been a couple of blue that's squeaked in. But for the most part, most people are playing the Tarkin Town version. I was pretty big on Cad Bane in set 2. I never really got into playing Boba. I didn't like the playstyle. And I generally play something a little different than what most people play. But I've always enjoyed Cad Bane. I think Cad Bane's a great leader. So I'm glad to see him making it onto the S tier list. The next one I'm going to cover is Quinlan Voss. Quinlan, I believe when I did my assessment of him, I kind of put him lower. I put him in like a B or C tier. And I think that a lot of people kind of under evaluated him. But Quinlan has won 7 PQs and has made top 8 in 93. With that being said, there's actually been quite a bit of a split with Quinlan Voss. He's been split with command and aggression. I don't recall seeing any other version. The next deck is Bosk, and I'm actually going to put him a little bit lower than Quinlan because when I took a look at it, he has not won as many PQs as Quinlan, and he's actually not made top 8 as much as Quinlan either. He did beat out Cad Bane. Boss had 79 to Cad's 51 on the top 8s. So I'm going to put Boss there. However, just like Quinlan, there's been kind of a split on the two style of decks. One being Boss Blue, which is absolute hard control, and I enjoy that version a lot better. However, um, however, it doesn't seem to do as well as the Boss Green, which that's the one that um, I built early on in set 2, and it was a lot of fun. You know, dropping crate dragons several turns before they're supposed to. It's always fun to do. At least for you. Your opponent may not enjoy it as much. But again, I think everyone can agree with the fact that we kind of missed how good Quinlan was because Boba was in the meta. Normally, if you're playing a cunning deck, you're not worried about heroic unless you're playing Han, and at the time, most people were playing Han Command or Han Cunning. So Quinlan kind of got overlooked, and I think most people could agree with that. But the reason why I brought that up again is Django. Django, I think everyone could say Django was kind of looked down upon and was like, eh. Because when you have a cunning villain, your main comparisons for that is going to be the best deck in the set, or the best leader in the meta, and that was absolutely Boba Fett. Absolutely dominated, absolutely made a lot of people miserable. I mean, before he was suspended, he was literally winning, 50% of the meta. I mean, he was making top 8 over 50% of the PQs. So, and that was with every variation because for some reason that leader was able to fit in every color scheme and still put out numbers, which I think is very harmful to a game. So I'm glad Fantasy Flight did something about that. But once he was gone, people picked up the fact that Django does some pretty cool stuff. And as I said earlier, kind of replaced Tarkin as being the premier space deck for the meta. The last two should come as no surprise, as they have the highest win percentages, they have the highest top 8s, they just absolutely dominate the meta. Not in the numbers of Boba, but they are still very, very dominant. As a matter of fact, win percentages for Sabine ECL is almost 13% of the time and makes top 8 close to 16%. I mean, overall, for a meta that's actually pretty decent, it means that your meta is kind of open. I mean, you have 7 leaders or 7 different leaders that are consistently making top 8, and I believe the numbers for that came to roughly 61%. So even though your most used leaders or most played leaders or the ones with the highest percentages, they only make up 2/3 of your meta. I think that is very acceptable and shows very healthy format because there's so many other leaders that are still popping up. Sabine has won 14 PQs and has made top 8 with 132 decks. I believe there is a few versions of the yellow or the blonde Sabine, but most of them are ECL or green, meaning a 30-point base instead of the 25. The last one, which is Han 1, has won I think that number. No, sorry, not 100. I was saying the Han one. Uh, has won 38 of the 109 PQs, which is 24% roughly. Has made top 8 with 176 decks. So it's sitting at around 20%. Just to clarify, some people has actually tried to call for his banning, but you have to realize that Fantasy Flight allowed Boba to get up to a 30, a 35% win rate in tournaments and over a 53% top 8 rate. So I would say that I'm grateful to have Han where he is, and I think the format's healthy enough that we do not have to worry about, suspending another unit or another leader. With that being said, this is my tier list. If y'all disagree, y'all can let me know. Tell me what you think. I'm expecting to do one again for the next set that's coming out, and I'll be looking forward to seeing what you guys think with this. With that being said, I want to thank my Patreons for doing so much for me and helping out and supporting me, and a lot of them are really great by playtesting with me and actually playing card games for us to record and practice. So I want to give a big shout out to them. In other news, hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll have our own TCG player. We are in the process of currently getting approved, so if you guys need any singles, you're more than welcome to, come get them from us. With that being said, I hope you guys have a great time, and let me know what you think, and like and subscribe.